Good morning. Well, I'd like to, first of all, thank the folks from QAD for making me feel extraordinarily welcome this morning. I grew up in Glasgow, Scotland, and the piece of music you heard when you walked out for the break was the Average White Band's Pick Up the Pieces. They used to be known as the House of Lords and played in our local dance hall, so I thank the sound guys for that. That's terrific. I'm a futurist, a professional futurist, which is kind of an oxymoron, I guess. People often ask, how do you become a futurist? My undergraduate training at Edinburgh University was Geographic and Economic Change in Scotland, 1580 to 1830, which is incredibly useful. Now, in fairness, I've been a student of structural change for 25 years, and those of you who know your Scottish history will remember that in a very short period of time in the latter part of the 18th and the beginning of the 19th century, Scotland transformed themselves from being a bunch of Braveheart, Claymore-wielding maniacs to being the crucible of the Industrial Revolution and the Age of Enlightenment. As you well know, the Scots invented every important technology over the last 500 years. Including golf, free enterprise, and the television. If you want to fight about that, we can, but you'll lose. We cloned the sheep. And given my countrymen's predilection for that animal, it's probably no surprise. So I was born and educated in Scotland. I moved to Canada, spent 10 years in Canada and worked there. I know there are Canadians in the audience. My wife's Canadian, my son's Canadian. Canadians are very proud of their country and proud of all they've accomplished. They describe themselves as unarmed Americans with health insurance. You know, so certainly achieved a lot. I moved from Canada in the mid-'80s, and for most of the last 15 years I've been involved in the futures business, mostly at the Institute for the Future, and more recently with affiliation with Anderson Consulting and some of the work I've been doing with them. But really, this talk I want to give this morning is really a summation of what I've learned working in the futures business over a 12-year period. And it's an embarrassingly simple notion. The argument is that most businesses in most industries are going along quite nicely on the first curve, the red curve. But they have a sneaking suspicion in their gut that it's going to decline in absolute or relative terms. This could be revenues, it could be growth rates, and be superseded by a second curve, a new business or a new way of doing business that is radically different from the old familiar first curve. Now, the dirty little secret of futurism is we cannot predict the future. Many smart people have tried, but it's really an elusive effort. Doesn't mean you can't think systematically about the future, but you can't predict perfectly. And there's a natural human tendency to overestimate the impact of phenomena in the short run and underestimate it in the long run. So we commit two types of errors. We say, oh, okay, no one's going to watch Seinfeld anymore, no one's going to read books, everything's going to be done over the internet, so I will abandon all my traditional advertising strategies, only to find that there's 3 people hit your web page in the last year. That's not smart. Equally, if you don't start building that second curve and lay the foundation for the future, you're not going to be in the phone book in the 21st century. That's my talk. Thank you very much. Now, let me just say a little bit more. The tension strategically gets very profound because if you jump too soon, the likelihood is you're going to be in direct competition either with yourself or your best customers. Now, I'm sure many of you are going through this in terms of the transformation in the supply chain, and it's fashionable to disintermediate people. The dirty little secret, however, is that the people you're disintermediating are in the short run your best customers. And sometimes you can even be in direct competition with yourself. So this tension is very profound and is happening across a wide variety of industries. As Rita mentioned, I've worked with more than 100 Fortune 500 companies, drawn from a lot of different industries, many of them actually represented in this room. But I think what's important here is that you cannot predict the pace of change. What you can do is get fit for change and make yourself adaptable and flexible enough to be able to deal not only with the first curve, which you have to do in the short run, but also with the second curve. See, the trick here is that all of the current profit, all of the current revenue is on that first curve, but all of the future growth is going to be on the second curve. And it's trying to make sure that you jump across that bridge between those two curves that's absolutely critical for the future. Now, the best example I can give you of this is Microsoft. Microsoft in the last 36 months has really redirected itself to focus on what Bill Gates believes is the real second curve, namely the internet. And I think it's a very good example, even though, you know, whatever the number is, 90% of Microsoft's revenue and profit comes from a brain-dead copy of the Apple operating system from 1984. But it's true to say that most of the growth for that organization will be in content, will be in new media, will be on the internet. And it's a perfect example of trying to deal with this dichotomy.